We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next hour. Delcy Rodriguez sworn in as Venezuela's interim president as Nicolas Maduro pleads not guilty in U.S. court. Venezuelan parliament demands his release. Greenland dismisses U.S. takeover fears as Prime Minister Nielsen reassures citizens. Denmark warns any move to take Greenland by force would destroy 80 years of transatlantic security ties. Iranian leaders say the nation will offer no leniency to rioters but accept citizens' right to demonstrate as the protests show no signs of waning off. Wrapping a visit to France, India's Minister of External Affairs, Dr. Jaishankar, arrives in Luxembourg, aims to boost strategic bilateral engagements. And a Hindu businessman shot dead in Bangladesh. Concerns persist on security of minority community in the nation as a Hindu woman is gang raped, tied to a tree and brutally tortured. And on to the details now. Ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro appeared in the New York court for the first time and pleaded not guilty to all charges against him after U.S. captured them in a military operation. Maduro, who called himself the president of Venezuela, said he is innocent and not guilty, while Maduro's wife, Cilia Flores, also pleaded not guilty. Maduro has long denied the allegations, saying they were a mask for imperialistic designs on Venezuela's rich oil reserves. Maduro lawyer Barry Pollack said he anticipated voluminous and complex litigation over what he called his client's military abduction. He also said Maduro was not requesting his release but may later. Maduro is facing charges of narco-terrorism, conspiracy, cocaine importation, conspiracy and weapon charges. The judge ordered both to remain behind bars and set a new hearing date of March 17th. While Venezuela's Vice President and Oil Minister Delcy Rodriguez was formally sworn in on Monday as the country's interim president, 2 days after U.S. forces captured her predecessor, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife Cilia Flores to face trial in New York. Rodriguez took the oath in the National Assembly, telling lawmakers she did so in the name of all Venezuelans. Rodriguez, a 56-year-old labor lawyer, was sworn in by her brother George, who is the head of the National Assembly legislature. Also sworn in on Monday were 283 lawmakers elected last May, just a small number and classed as opposition. Most of the opposition boycotted the contest. The only lawmaker not in attendance was First Lady Cilia Flores, who is in U.S. custody. The ambassadors of China, Russia and Iran, all close allies of Venezuela, were among the first foreign diplomats to congratulate Delcy Rodriguez after she was sworn in as the country's acting president. And UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres on Monday called for respect of nations' political independence following a U.S. military operation in Venezuela. Now, Guterres said in a statement delivered to the Council by UN Political Affairs Chief Rosemary DiCarlo that he was concerned that the U.S. operation to capture Maduro in Caracas early on Saturday did not respect the rules of international law.
The latest developments follow a period of heightened tensions beginning in mid-August, as discussed in this Council on 2 previous occasions. I have consistently stressed the imperative of full respect by all for international law, including the Charter of the United Nations, which provides the foundation for the maintenance of international peace and security. I remain deeply concerned that rules of international law have not been respected with regard to the 3 January military action. The Charter enshrines the prohibition of the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state.
Well, the United States rejected accusations of aggression against Venezuela at an emergency United Nations Security Council meeting, saying the operation was a law enforcement action tied to long-standing criminal charges.
As Secretary Rubio has said, there is no war against Venezuela or its people. We are not occupying a country. This was a law enforcement operation in furtherance of lawful indictments that have existed for decades. The United States arrested a narco trafficker who is now going to stand trial in the United States in accordance with the rule of law for the crimes he's committed against our people for 15 years. The United States will not waver in our actions to protect Americans from the scourge of narco-terrorism and seeks peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela.
While Venezuela's UN ambassador Samuel Moncada said international norms were at risk in the aftermath of the US arrest and also urged the Security Council to demand that Washington releases Maduro and his wife.
Venezuela is a victim of these attacks as a result of its natural wealth. Oil, energy, strategic resources, and the geopolitical position of our country have historically been factors of greed and external pressure. When the use of force is used to control resources, impose governments, or redesign states, we are faced with a logic that refers to the worst practice of colonialism and neocolonialism. Accepting this logic implies opening the door to a profoundly unstable world where countries with greater military capabilities can decide by force the political and economic destiny of other states.
Han sido históricamente factores de codicia.
And for more on this, we have my colleague Akshay Tongre joining us. Well, Akshay, how strong is the U.S. claim that this was a law enforcement action rather than an act of aggression? And what legal precedent could this case set for cross-border arrest of sitting or former heads of state?
Well, there is no legality, honestly, to the claims that the US is making. You can't just pick somebody on the basis of allegations. It's not even that the court had already ruled out that Nicolas Maduro is a narco-terrorist, or even then, you can't really pick up a foreign leader based on your domestic judgment. It can be anything. It can be that the judges were paid off. They were giving a partisan sort of a judgment, and it's like a Delhi local court giving an order that Donald Trump is in Epstein files and he has to be arrested. So it doesn't mean that our forces can go to the US and pick Donald Trump up. So if this thing follows, if you're talking about legal precedents, if this kind of incidents start to follow, then no world leader is going to be safe in their territory, because any court in any country can rule out against a foreign leader, and countries can start sending their militaries to abduct these leaders based on their own domestic judgment. So it's very dangerous for the global order. It's very dangerous for the United Nations, which had very little credibility left as it is. We have seen during Israel-Hamas conflict, we have seen during Russia-Ukraine conflict that it has absolutely shattered in front of any sort of pressure to mediate in any conflict. And again, we are seeing that other major countries dropping in themselves, like it used to happen before the United Nations, and nobody respecting really the order that is there, especially the United Nations Security Council that is long pending for changes, for restructuring, that follows the same old method that has been set up after the World War II, which has 5 permanent members. And if these 5 permanent members want, no resolution can be adopted. In fact, the resolution, if it is brought in the United Nations Security Council, it will straight be vetoed by the US, which means that it will be blocked at the very site, which means that it is useless if these 5 nations are involved, which includes Russia, China, France, UK, and US, and doesn't really represent most of the world. including the largest democracy, that is India, countries like Japan, Germany. It is rendered useless, to be honest. So as of now, there is not much hope from the United Nations either.
Absolutely, UNSC definitely needs a restructuring. But Akshay, Maduro is now standing in the New York courtroom pleading not guilty. While back home, Delcy Rodriguez has been sworn in by the legislator. Most of the opposition refused to recognize. Now, how credible and stable does this interim government really look right now?
Well, it's not quite stable because already Venezuela has been going through a political crisis. The opposition obviously is lured by the US to bring them into power, and obviously it seems that they have already picked up, the chance to be in power, the chance to sell oil to US over their own national sovereignty and integrity, which has been diminished by the action that has been taken by the US. We can see that Venezuela is obviously a much smaller country, much smaller economy, but every country has its own self-respect on the international forums, its own rule-based order, and what US has done is attack on that pride of Venezuela as a nation. By going and picking up Maduro, they could have sent their legal teams. They could have done something about it. But the manner in which it has been executed, the abduction of Maduro, is obviously it has shaken the political landscape of the country as well.
All right. Also, Akshay, given the backing of allies like Russia, China and Iran and the UN Secretary General's concerns also, how might this arrest reshape US-Latin America relations, if we talk about, and overall influence the global norms around sovereignty and intervention?
Well, United Nations Security Council or the UN in general will obviously give statements, and at least they have spoken on the issue that the sovereignty of Venezuela has been targeted by US attack. However, it doesn't. That's it for the US to do, because earlier as well in other conflicts they can only give statements, and there is hardly anything they can do. But if you look at countries like China, Iran again is already embroiled in a sort of a proxy war there in the Middle East. Then there is China. China's own credibility has been questioned. All the PR campaigning that China has done for the last 2 decades, that it is a superpower, it is a rising superpower, it is a hegemon in the region, because at the sight of their own ally being abducted, there was hardly anything China could do in terms of hard actions. But we have to wait and watch that how these things turn out in future, and whether there will be some shift according to the geopolitical interest of these major players.
All right, Akshay, thank you so much for all those details. And moving on, following the swearing ceremony of interim leader Delcy Rodriguez, thousands of protesters gathered outside the Venezuelan parliament in Caracas on Monday, demanding the release of ousted leader Nicolas Maduro. Well, relations between the United States and Latin America are under fresh strain. President Donald Trump has issued a series of strong warnings directed at leaders in Colombia, Mexico and Cuba. His remarks are already prompting sharp responses from regional governments and raising questions about the future of US diplomacy in the hemisphere. DD India's Rahul Upadhyay brings us more.
US President Donald Trump has issued a series of blunt warnings to multiple countries. The remarks came after the US captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores and brought them to New York on charges of drug trafficking. Facing questions about Venezuela aboard Air Force One on Sunday, Trump broadened his remarks to other Latin American countries, singling out Colombia and its president Gustavo Petro. Trump accused Colombia of being run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States.
We have a very sick neighbor. It's not a neighbor, but it's close to a neighbor. And that's Venezuela. It's very sick. Colombia is very sick, too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. And he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you.
The remarks come amid an escalating dispute between Washington and Bogota over US boat strikes in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific, operations that have increased pressure on Colombia. Meanwhile, Petro warned the United States against what he called illegitimate threats. In a lengthy post on social media, Petro said he would defend Colombia's sovereignty and urged US Senator Marco Rubio to read the constitution, rejecting claims that he was unwilling to cooperate. President Trump reserved similar criticism for Mexico, saying the United States has to do something with Mexico and that the country has to get their act together, without providing further details.
Mexico has to get their act together because they're pouring through Mexico, and we're going to have to do something. We'd love Mexico to do it. They're capable of doing it, but unfortunately the cartels are very strong.
Trump also targeted Cuba, suggesting US intervention may not be necessary because the island nation is close to collapse.
I think it's just going to fall. I don't think we need any action. It looks like it's going down. It's going down for the count. You ever watch a fight? Yeah. They go down for the count. And Cuba looks like it's going down.
President Trump's remarks indicate the US president may extend America's interventionist approach further in Latin America. Leaders across the region are reasserting their sovereignty, but there's little guarantee that it can be preserved. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Now. US scales back child vaccine recommendations, sparking alarm among medical experts. CAS President Doordarshan wins third term after term limits scrapped, cementing Russia's influence. And India urges citizens to avoid non-essential travel to Iran amid rising security concerns. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khuranan. Moving on, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Monday he had appointed Canada's former Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland as his economic development advisor, citing her experience in attracting investment. Now, Freeland, who has Ukrainian ancestry, served as Canada's Deputy Prime Minister between 2019 and 2024 and was a leading international advocate for sending aid to Kyiv. She's still a lawmaker in the National Parliament, but said she would step down in the coming weeks. She also said she would quit her role as Ottawa's special envoy to Ukraine, a post she only took up last September. She said in a statement on X, and I quote, "Ukraine is at the forefront of today's global fight for democracy, and I welcome this chance to contribute on as unpaid basis as an economic advisor," unquote. And Greenland dismisses US takeover fears as Prime Minister Nielsen reassures its citizens. Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen confirmed that Greenland is seeking to strengthen ties with the United States and its citizens should not fear an imminent American takeover, following renewed interest in the Arctic island by US President Donald Trump. European powers rallied behind Greenland on Monday after the US military operation in which Venezuela's leader was seized, rekindling concerns that the island, an autonomous Danish territory, might face a similar scenario. Trump has said repeatedly he wants to take over Greenland and told The Atlantic magazine on Sunday that the European allies backed Denmark and Greenland on the matter, emphasizing that the island's future lies in the hands of its people. And Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said on Monday US President Donald Trump must be taken seriously when he says he wants to acquire Greenland, and she reiterated that the Arctic island did not want to be part of the United States. Denmark said any move to take Greenland by force would destroy 80 years of transatlantic security ties. European powers also rallied behind Greenland after the US military operation in which Venezuela's leader was seized rekindled concerns in Denmark that the island, an autonomous Danish territory, might face a similar scenario.
Firstly, I believe that the American president should be taken seriously when he says that he wants Greenland. But I also want to make it clear that if the United States chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops. That is, including our NATO and thus the security that has been provided since the end of the Second World War.
Well, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz will not seek a third term in office. He announced on Monday, saying he would instead focus on allegations of fraud in the state's welfare system. Now, Walz became governor of the Midwestern state in 2019 and gained national prominence in 2024 as the running mate of the then Vice President Kamala Harris, the Democratic candidate who lost to Trump. In his announcement, Walz referred to the fraud allegations as a crisis and said he wanted to let others worry about the election while I focus on the work. Recently, the Trump administration has singled out Walz and Minnesota, including its large population of Somali Americans and Somali immigrants, over allegations of fraud dating back to the year 2020. At least 56 people have pleaded guilty since federal prosecutors brought charges in 2022 under Trump's Democratic predecessor, Joe Biden. And the U.S. took the unprecedented step on Monday of dropping the number of vaccines it recommends for every child, leaving other immunizations such as flu shots open to families to choose but without clear guidance. The new list of recommended vaccines issued by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention includes polio and measles, but others such as hepatitis A and B and COVID vaccines are recommended based on risk and shared clinical decision-making between doctors and the parents. The official said the overall to the federal vaccine schedule won't result in any families losing access or insurance coverage for vaccines, but medical experts slammed the move, saying it could lead to preventable hospitalizations and deaths. Well, the overall is the latest sweeping policy change made under the Trump administration by Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Last month, President Donald Trump urged the U.S. to align with other developed nations by reducing the number of shots for the children. Kennedy has previously led efforts to drop universal recommendations for COVID-19 and hepatitis B shots for children, citing links to autism that scientists have repeatedly debunked. And Central African Republican President Faustin Archange Touadéra has won a third term in office, securing an outright majority in the presidential election held on December 28th. Provincial results from the Electoral Commission showed on Monday. Now, the 68-year-old Touadéra, who took power a decade ago, was seeking a third term after a constitutional referendum in 2023 scrapped the presidential term limit. The results announced on Monday night by election officials showed Touadéra received 76.15% of the vote, while former Prime Minister Anicet Georges Dalgal received 14.66% and former Prime Minister Henri-Marie Dondra received 3.19%. Touadéra's victory will likely further the interest of Russia, which has traded security assistance to access to resources including gold and diamonds. And Iranian leaders say the nation will offer no leniency to rioters but accept citizens' right to demonstrate as the protest persists for more than a week of sometimes deadly protest. The remarks came after U.S. President Donald Trump said Iran would face consequences if the authorities killed more demonstrators. Protests erupted on December 28th when shopkeepers in capital Tehran staged a strike over high prices and economic stagnation. They have since spread to other cities and expanded to include political demands. At least 12 people have been killed since December 30th in localized clashes, including members of its security forces, according to official announcements. In the latest developments, Iran had announced a monthly allowance for every citizen to alleviate economic pressure, equivalent to around 3.5% of the average monthly wage. However, despite the measure, there are still no signs of stabilization.
Iran has announced a major increase in government subsidies as it seeks to ease mounting economic pressure caused by soaring prices and a sharply weakening currency. The government says monthly subsidies will rise from 3 million riyals to 10 million riyals per household, more than tripling the current amount. The move comes amid a wave of nationwide protests that began on December 28th, when shopkeepers in Tehran launched strikes over high prices and economic stagnation. The unrest has seen spread across the country. Demonstrations have now been reported in 25 of Iran's 31 provinces, affecting at least 45 cities. At least 12 people, including members of the security forces, have been killed in localized clashes since December 38th, according to official tallies. Iran's economic crisis has been worsened by years of international sanctions. The rial has lost more than a third of its value against the US dollar over the past year, while inflation surged to over 50% in December. Despite the conciliatory economic measures, Iran's leadership has issued stern warnings to rioters. The head of the judiciary said that although people have the right to demonstrate, Iran will offer no leniency to rioters. Meanwhile, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei vowed that Iran would not yield to what he called enemy pressure.
We will not yield to the enemy. We will bring the enemy to his knees by relying on God Almighty and with confidence in the company of the people, God willing, with divine success.
This comes as US President Donald Trump recently said that Iran can get hit very hard by the United States if the demonstrators are targeted.
We'll take a look. We're watching it very closely. If they start killing people like they have in the past, I think they're going to get hit very hard by the United States.
While officials say they are listening to economic grievances, authorities continue to accuse foreign powers of stoking unrest even as sporadic protests persist and Iran faces deepening economic uncertainty. Rupak Kumar Jha's report for DD India.
Well, India has issued a travel advisory urging its citizens to avoid non-essential travel to Iran until further notice. The advisory follows recent developments, with authorities asking internationals and persons of Indian origin currently in Iran to remain cautious and avoid areas of protest or demonstrations. Residents have been advised to closely monitor updates from the Indian Embassy in Tehran and follow local news. Indian citizens living in Iran on resident visas have also been asked to register with the embassy. We'll get you all the weather updates from around the country. Johannesburg unveils monumental statue at Baps Mandir, celebrating Indian diaspora's cultural legacy. And migratory birds flock to Chilika Lake in Odisha, turning Asia's largest brackish water lagoon into a vibrant hub of avian activity.
This week on Defense Dynamics, India is reshaping its military structure with Bhaira formations. What are ramjet-powered artillery shells? And how India's rocket punch gets an emergency boost with Suryastra. As Europe and Israel turn to India for industrial depth, my take explains the why. Watch Defense Dynamics this Wednesday at 8 p.m. IST only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Delcy Rodriguez sworn in as Venezuela's interim president as Nicolas Maduro pleads not guilty in U.S. court. Venezuelan parliament demands his release. Greenland dismisses U.S. takeover fears as Prime Minister Nielsen reassures citizens. Denmark warns any move to take Greenland by force would destroy 80 years of transatlantic security ties. Iranian leaders say the nation will offer no leniency to rioters but accept citizens' right to demonstrate as the protests show no signs of waning off. A Hindu businessman shot dead in Bangladesh. Concerns persist on security of minority community in the nation as a Hindu woman is gang raped, tied to a tree and brutally tortured. Wrapping a visit to France, India's Minister of External Affairs, Dr. Jaishankar, arrives in Luxembourg, aims to boost strategic bilateral engagements. Well, yet another atrocity against Hindus has come to light in Bangladesh. This time, a Hindu woman has alleged that she was gang raped, tied to a tree and brutally tortured in Kaliganj Upazila of Jehanidia district on Monday. The officer in charge, Jalal Hussain, said the incident took place on December 31st, but the complaint was filed later as the victim was undergoing treatment in the hospital. The woman was rescued in a critically injured condition and admitted to the hospital. One accused has been arrested and police are continuing the investigation. In another incident, a Hindu businessman who was also the acting editor of a newspaper was fatally shot in the head by unidentified assailants on Monday in Jessore district in southern Bangladesh. The shooting marks the latest in a spate of violent incidents against minorities in the country, especially the Hindu community members. An investigation was launched into the incident as well. Bangladesh has been witnessing widespread unrest since the death of Sharif Usman Hadi in December. Hadi, a prominent political activist and youth leader associated with Inqilab Mancha, a political platform that played a major role in the 2024 uprising that led to the ouster of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, was set to contest February polls in Bangladesh when he was shot in broad daylight. Hadi later succumbed to his injuries at a hospital in Singapore. And we have Naval Sangh Parmar joining us on the phone line from Dhaka for more information on this. Well, Naval Sangh, what is the latest condition in Dhaka right now?
In Dhaka, the election is approaching in Bangladesh as 12th February. There is a national election, parliamentary election. Before that, pre-election violence. However, it is not the case that in Bangladesh minority suppression or violence against the minority community is a new thing. It is a continued and ongoing process where the minority is subjected to the atrocities. And the latest in that series is the incident yesterday reported, one in Jessore and one in Jhenaidah district, where one widow minority lady have been allegedly gang raped by the people from the same village. And it was not reported till yesterday. So that is the seriousness, that is the lack of policing or lack of confidence among the people to go to police station to report a heinous crime like gang rape. So this is the scenario, law and order situation. And there was another incident at Jeshore where the businessman and editor of a newspaper, BD Kagos, Narel-based newspaper, was shot dead in public place, in market area, where some people came and just opened fire on him, and he on the spot he got dead. So this type of incidents are very frequent, and as the election is approaching, the intimidation to the voters, particularly from the minority community, it is the case of intimidation. So, and on many occasions, many leaders from the across party line, maybe affiliated with Jamaat or BNP, they are threatening people either to vote in their favor or not to vote in stay absent. This kind of reports are also coming that the leaders, political leaders, are threatening the voters before the election. So, as the Yunus administration failed to provide safety and security to the people of Bangladesh, and particularly the vulnerable section where minorities, Hindus, Buddhists, Christians, they are the people who are at the receiving end of this lawlessness situation in Bangladesh, and the policing in Bangladesh is in pathetic condition. Police don't have confidence at all there, and there is no preventive patrolling kind of things or preventive measures from the police force. So this is the scenario here in Bangladesh.
Right, Namal Singh, as you said, the police is in a pathetic condition right now. What are the authorities doing?
Authority, the Yunus administration is in power with the support of some fundamentalist forces in Bangladesh, and many of them are, many of its advisors are also having a close link with the fundamentalist party. And fundamentalist elements in Bangladesh have their own agenda, and they want to pursue their agenda. And this administration and the people in some of the people in administration, they are allowing them to do so. And sometimes they want to control it, but they have a certain kind of baggages with them, so they are not able to do that. That is the scenario.
All right, thank you so much, Namal Singh, for all those details from Bangladesh. And moving on, after a successful visit to France, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar arrived in Luxembourg, where he will hold discussions with the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Foreign Affairs, Xavier Bettel, of the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, and with the senior leadership of Luxembourg. He will also be interacting with the members of the Indian community in Luxembourg. During his visit to France, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar met International Energy Agency Executive Director Fatiha Birol and discussed global energy issues, including oil markets and nuclear power. Birol appreciated his assessment of the global energy scenario and extended his support for India's growth and development. During his visit, the minister also interacted with participants of the French-Indian Young Talent Program by Chamber of Commerce and Industry, France, India and Paris. He discussed the transformations underway in the world and the importance of India-France collaboration in that context. Well, a major cultural and civic milestone in Johannesburg's North Riding is bringing the Indian diaspora into the spotlight as a monumental bronze statue is unveiled at the Babs Hindu Mandir and Cultural Complex. Take a look.
The Bocha Sanwasi Shri Akshar Purushottam Sanstha Hindu Mandir and Cultural Complex consecrated a 42-foot bronze image of Nilkant Varni, a revered 18th century yogi and spiritual luminary, in a moment drawing pride and participation from the Indian community. Rising prominently at the entrance of the mandir, the statue is the tallest bronze image in South Africa and among the most striking public monuments on the African continent. For many in the Indian diaspora, it is more than a religious symbol. It is a powerful touchstone of heritage, identity and shared values. Depicted in Vrikshasana, a yogic posture balancing on one leg, the sacred image embodies self-discipline, perseverance, mental focus, and service to society, qualities which resonate deeply with a community navigating life far from its ancestral homeland. Cast primarily in copper and brass and weighing approximately 20 tons, the statue's single-leg stance represents both an extraordinary engineering feat and a spiritual metaphor, steadiness amidst life's pressures.
Young yogi, a teenage yogi, Nilakant meaning the fearless one, He was chosen because his story of determination, leaving home at a very young age, searching for dialogue, searching for opportunities to serve, and searching for deeper meaning throughout pilgrimage places in India, serve as inspiration for anyone who is willing to embark on a journey of any nature. Nilkant actually practiced Vrukshasana out of compassion. His prayer on one foot was for the goodness of all beings. It wasn't only the happiness of welfare of human beings, but for all living entities. Nilkant was able to apply himself, apply his discipline and his steadfastness of mind, so others may benefit from his austerities. So my personal opinion is his compassion of taking 4 months out of his own pursuits for the good of others in such a prayerful manner is the greatest virtue.
The consecration was led by His Holiness Swayam Prakash Swami, also known as Dr. Swami, a senior BAPS monk respected worldwide. The statue honors Nilkant Varni's 7-year teenage pilgrimage across India, including his 4-month meditation on one leg at Muktinath in the Himalayas, where he prayed for peace and well-being for all.
આપણે સ્વામિનારાયણ મહામંત્રની ધૂન કરીશું. સ્વામિનારાયણ 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 સ્વામિનારાયણ.
For the Indian diaspora in South Africa, the monument stands as a symbol of continuity, a bridge between heritage and the present, reminding younger generations of values rooted in discipline, service, and moral courage. The unveiling brought together the Indian diaspora across South Africa, celebrating heritage, culture, and shared values. For DD India, South Africa, I'm Nazneen. Today we stand steady. One leg, one vision, one purpose.
And on some weather news now, the Indian Meteorological Department forecast persistent dense fog blanketing northwest, central, east and northeast India, with cold day conditions intensifying in isolated pockets of Punjab, Haryana, Chandigarh, Rajasthan and Jharkhand, as minimum temperatures could drop further amid weak western disturbances. Now, the recent dense fog episodes with visibility dipping to 0 meters in parts of Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh signal ongoing transport disruptions and public safety risks. Well, IMD urges caution for travel, agriculture and vulnerable populations, recommending warm clothing and fog lights. Relief appears unlikely before January 8th in northern plains, testing winter resilience amid climate variability. Tebon, the Lahore and Spiti district of Himachal Pradesh and the Gulmarg tourist resort in Jammu and Kashmir witnessed the coldest night of the year, with the temperatures at both places closer to 10 degrees below freezing point. And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. Around 3 million devotees at the Triveni Ghat in Prayagraj took a holy dip in the Ganga River on Monday, marking the beginning of the Magh month. The month is celebrated for intense spiritual purification. Saints and devotees from across the country participated in the rituals, praising the government for making grand arrangements for the smooth conduct of the event. Thousands of migratory birds have arrived at Chilika Lake in Odisha this winter, turning Asia's largest brackish water lagoon into a vibrant hub of avian activity. The influx of birds has drawn visitors in large numbers. The annual migration at Chilika Lake signifies its importance as a major wintering habitat for migratory birds. A gold-plated Bhagavad Gita will be unveiled on January 8th at the Sri Krishna Temple in Udupi, Karnataka. The gold-plated sacred book is prepared by devotees in Delhi at a cost of around 2 crore Indian rupees. The scripture contains all 18 chapters and 700 verses engraved on gold plates and will be offered at the temple in the presence of several dignitaries. And on to some business news now. Major stock indexes and oil prices gained on Monday, with energy shares climbing and investors reacting mostly calmly to potential market ramifications. Now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average hit a record high. The S&P 500 Energy Index rose to its highest since March 2025. Financial shares also rose, while an S&P index of defense shares was up more than 1%. Oil prices were also higher as traders assessed the possible impact on crude flows from Venezuela, home of the biggest global oil reserves. NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang announced that the company's next-generation chips are now in full production and can deliver up to 5 times more AI computing power than current chips used for chatbots and other applications. Speaking at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, Huang shared that the new chips, already being tested by AI companies in NVIDIA's labs, will launch later this year amid growing competition. The Vera Rubin platform, comprising 6 NVIDIA chips, will feature systems with 72 graphics units and 36 central processors, scalable into pods with over 1,000 chips. Huang said major performance gains come from a proprietary data format. NVIDIA also unveiled advanced networking switches, self-driving car software, and wider access to its Alpha Mayo research tools.
Now, we've been shipping GB200s a year and a half ago. Right now, we're in full-scale manufacturing of GB300. And if Vera Rubin is going to be in time for this year, it must be in production by now. And so today, I can tell you that Vera Rubin is in full production.
Well, you're watching DD India News Hour. Time now for some sports news. Athletes will hope to bring laurels for their respective states and union territories as the second day of the Khelo India Beach Games got underway in the U today. They are competing in various sports such as beach soccer, beach volleyball, beach pencak silat, and beach kabaddi. Over 2,100 athletes are participating in the competition, which aims to promote sports and fitness among young people. Around 25 states and 6 union territories feature in the Games, which runs from 5th to 10th of January. The 6 medal sports are beach soccer, beach volleyball, beach sipak, takraw, beach kabaddi, pencak silat, and open water swimming, while Malakhamb and tug-of-war are non-medal events. An 11-year-old racing prodigy, Atika Mir, has scripted history by becoming the first Indian to secure a top 5 finish globally on debut during the UAE Karting Championship in Abu Dhabi. She finished 5th in the male-dominated grid, where 35 drivers participated. The 11-year-old Indian has become the first female to register a top 5 finish in the history of the competition. She lost out on the podium by only 4/10 of the second. The championship is a premier professional kart racing series in the United Arab Emirates, featuring young talents across various age groups. And 2-time Olympic medalist PV Sindhu will return to competitive action for the first time since last September at the Malaysian Open Badminton Tournament. Sindhu will begin her campaign in Kuala Lumpur on Wednesday. The 30-year-old Indian badminton player has not featured on the BWF World Tour since her quarter-final loss at the China Masters last September. Meanwhile, India's prospects in men's doubles will be led by 2-time world champion bronze medalist Chirag Shetty and Satvak Sairaj Rankareddy, who will play their opening match on Wednesday. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.